No, it's okay now.
I'm starting a basic layer haircut after the client has been properly draped and you've had your consultation. Section the hair in the 4 basic sections, which is from the apex of the head to just behind the ear. And clip that off. The back then is divided into 2 sections. Drop in your guideline section. Always work with the hair evenly damp to wet throughout the haircut. I am going to establish my guideline, combing each and every hair smoothly and evenly with even tension, distributed across the natural fall. I'm going to cut my guideline. I like to work from center, side to side, to ensure that I keep it even. If you start one side and go the other, you can end up really crooked, so I just like to work middle, side to side. Drop your second section. The thicker the hair, the thinner the sections you would cut. And if the hair is very fine, you can use larger sections. But as a beginner, you want to use small enough sections where you are controlling the sections and not getting lost in your haircut. Here, make sure you're combed every hair from root to end smoothly, evenly, and stacked one up on top of each other. And you want to cut. Now, my elevation is 90 degrees, but note I am holding my cutting line at a 45-degree angle because the back of the head is more at an angle, so that's the angle my hand is going to match at my cutting angle. While I'm down here in the occipital region, I maintain a 90-degree elevation with my cutting line more at a 45 because I'm matching that occipital region of the head. And you continue to work side by side. Side to side, I'm sorry. Making sure you're pulling the hair out in the direction it grows. Do not over direct in any way. You can ensure your haircut is even. Drop your next guide and you are going to drop your next section. What you're doing here is you're going to work your way up following the curve of the head. Note here your cutting line is about 45-degree angle. As you're right in the back of the head, you're going to be at a straight 90-degree angle. But as you're following the curve of the head, you're matching that out here at the natural fall. So your hair is, okay, I've completed the back of the haircut. If you're cutting vertically, when you cross-check to make sure that you've got a perfectly blended haircut, you cross-check horizontally. And your line should be perfectly straight so that you've got a perfectly blended haircut around both side and front view. So it's like a 3D sphere, half a sphere right here following the shape of the head. So we've completed the back section now. We're going to move to the front. Again, always work with the hair evenly wet throughout the haircut to ensure you get an even haircut. Establish your line here in front, and you can cut bangs or whatever you want, but if you're doing a basic layered haircut, really your front line should be about the same length as your back. There are numbers on your comb which represent inches. So if I've been cutting my, let's see, I've been cutting my mannequin at about 5.5 inches, so I want to make sure my front is going to be about 5.5 inches when I'm done.
You're so weird.
So we're going to go here. Now I want to find my guide coming from the back and match my back to the front. Here's my guide coming back here. Try to ignore the shorter hairs right over the ear. The hairline here is coming up and around. So you don't want to cut the hairline as if it's going across here. You have to take into account this area right in here. So if you see shorter hairs, make sure you're not using those as your guide. Your guide is coming from the back here. And you want to just evenly cut that, moving up to this line here so you can see your angle from here to here. On this side of the head I like to cut up, and you're going to that spot that you envisioned that was cut right there, so it's blended. Now when I go on this side, I'm going to find my back guideline, which is back here. And on this side I like to cut down. So I find my guide here. Make sure you don't have your, see how my scissors is pointing straight back here? If you follow that line, you're going to cut straight back this way. And that's going to take out all of that hair. You need to leave it in. You're pointing at a point that you're cutting to that it's down this way. So ensure that your scissors is like your pencil. And if you're going to draw down to that pencil, down to that point, you've got to have your shear pointing down. If you have it pointing back, you're going to cut out all that hair. So pointing down, and blend it right in to that area that you've cut. Now you want to ensure at this point before you finish the haircut that you're even on both sides, because if you didn't check this and you weren't even, you would complete the haircut and you'd have to start all over. Now you've got guide everywhere. You have your guide from the back, you have your guide from the front, and you're simply going to follow the curve of the head like this. So the head isn't flat on top, so you're not cutting a straight line, you're cutting a curved line. Now if for some reason your client wants shorter bangs or they want longer bangs, you can change that angle to go up or down. You just want it to blend. So take that point back here, cut across the mohawk, following that line, that arc that you just saw when you picked up those two pieces. And blend right in to the guide you cut in the front. So it's perfectly blended. Now you've got guide everywhere. You've got guide up here, you've got guide back here, you've got your guide down here. And all you have to do is, it's just this little section right here that you're cutting. Make sure again you're allowing to keep some weight over the ears, and then you blend it to the front hairline. So I follow, there's my guideline in the back, coming up, following, cutting right in to that line I cut on the top. A couple more slices here, there's my guide, following right up into the top. Now if you take some diagonal sections here, sometimes you get a little point right there. Just cut that out so it blends between the middle, just a tiny little spot. Repeat this on the next side. Make sure you get some hair from your back section that you've already cut. Make sure you know where your guide is. There's my guide. Don't go by how much hair you were cutting off. I was cutting off an inch in some places, but if the hair's been previously cut, it may not be exactly the same. So go by your guide, not by what you're cutting off. Don't say, oh, I was cutting off, an inch over there. I've got to be taking off an inch over here. You want to follow your guide. There's my guide. There's my guide. I'm going to take that little section out.
This time I was doing the.
And again, just kind of diagonal lines here, making sure you get that little point that's sometimes there. Now you've got your haircut, your completed haircut. When I'm checking my client, who is a human being, I like to check like this, holding it out, feeling it if it's even. However, with mannequins, because their head comes off, they're real easy to check like this because you can see them. You can see that even, this is in 3D, again back to the board, where you're following the curve of the head is exactly what you've created here. So that's a blended 90-degree haircut.